they get.
Well, on an average, like about how many people would you see, how many of those children do you see that happening to on a daily basis?
I couldn't quantify it. I mean, we serve over 300 at the elementary school, and, you know, there's just kids in need of lots of things. And a lot of them will have the Hickman shirts on multiple days, so they're getting things, receiving things, but still, it slips through the cracks, and it's, you know, and like you said, there's a silent group that you don't see, that
Right.
well sorted and, you know, but they're wanting for things too, so.
And even in Mount Juliet, Heidi works in
Yeah.
the kitchen and she sees the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know, kids are grabbing as much food as they can, you know, sometimes stuffing in their pockets to take
Sure.
extra food they can't pay for.
Yeah.
So it's not just.
it's not just this area, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and that's, you know, the reason we got turned on to it, because we do stuff like that, but when, and this is not political, trust me, this is not political, this is a moral issue. You know, where Governor Lee turned down $70 million to feed kids throughout the entire state. You know, of course, it would have cost $6 million to do that, to implement that. But instead, you know, he chose to spend $3 million so kids in maybe 15 counties get something to eat. It is a moral issue. It's not a political issue. It's, and we can't solve all the problems, but we're going to do what we can to serve and do what we can to help. You know, but because just what you said, you know, and what Beth told me as she was leaving, you know, of the people that we know about, they know about, there's, you know, exponentially many more, you know, that need help. And I'm just wondering if we should, when we do Thrive in Action teams, you know, should we do more kid
I was
sizes?
just gonna say that.
You know, I mean, we've given some to the middle school in the past. You know, I wonder if that's something we should do, you know, for the kids so they can have another T-shirt.
And we were talking about that with, trying to plan things out, like your wife had
Yeah.
come to me and asked me, and I missed most of the meeting. But, that's what I think is important, and that right now, summer is being taken care of to the best of our ability. And we were talking about doing something around Christmas time. And my thought was, we do something around Christmas time, but it's something that we do that would be for like February. When you are on those off months,
Right.
everybody will come and give.
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, people are gonna, yeah,
And
gonna,
then
But July is a
But
dry.
July is dry, February is dry. Like, it's Valentine's Day, so it's not a holiday where people are like thinking to go outside of loved ones. So that's what my thought was, and we were talking about doing something in, around Thanksgiving to Christmas that is plant the seed for that time that's after the season and it's stocks.
and that's something Compassion will look at our next meeting. We're gonna do feeding for their supper again. We set a tentative date for, September 27th, you know, to help. And we're gonna promote it, we haven't finalized it yet, but we're gonna promote it, you know, to feed kids during breaks.
Yeah.
Not just fall break, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Spring break?
Spring break.
Well, yeah, just because this is gonna, and we thought about, let's have an Oktoberfest. No, because that doesn't give the same feeling of what we're doing. We're gonna, as we said at our meeting, someone said, we're gonna build our brand. Yeah. To help people be fed, yeah.
I think, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do, or we have been doing is.
Happy Mother's Day.
You too.
You too?
Thank you.
We are giving them food. Now, you know the old adage about if you give a man a fish, you feed him today. If you teach him how to fish, you'll never see him again because he's out fishing. But what I'm saying is, we want to teach people how to fish. And
Yeah,
I'm thinking, maybe one of the things we could do, and I don't know if we could do it at the school or do it here, would be to start with a select group of students. Teach them how to prepare simple meals. We provide the meals. We can provide them with aprons, maybe with a grand or two. We can get pans and utensils that they need. And then help them make a meal, like in our kitchen here. Help them make a meal. And then give them the stuff that they can take home and make a meal at home for their families.
That's awesome.
Yeah, John, one of the things that the Hive is what I'm planning on doing is something like that. The problem is they don't have the money for the materials or the food. One of the things I was actually gonna come to you for, is I wanna try and go into the Napier community, and like you said, teach some of the parents, we provide the wool, teach them how to make scarves and hats for their children.
Yeah.
You know, doing that. But I think, you know, how we do with, room in the inn, how all, some of the churches and places, chip, whatever you wanna say, donate their time and their effort, their church, why can't we get them to pick a month and a week to feed their community? Churches near Napier, more churches here, so that there are more people who are serving their communities. You know, we have the food pantry here, we're doing stuff. What about, there's a million churches here. You know, like before I moved here, you know, somebody said there's a church on every corner, you know, and they're not
Yeah.
kidding, you know, so, I mean,
and we don't know what they're doing.
And we
They
don't-
might
we
be
don't know what
doing
they're doing,
10
but-
times more than us,
right,
they
and
may
it
be
could
doing
be,
nothing.
you know, maybe
We
they
just don't
could
know.
do, you know, we're doing, if we absolutely give the free t-shirts out and we're doing food this summer, maybe they can do food in February, maybe they can, you know, and for the whole year, we're providing, you know.
Maybe we could host something like an ecumenical food summit.
Yeah.
You know, inviting different churches and
Right.
saying, let's divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer. We don't have to agree, we can agree to disagree on our beliefs, but if you are following the walk of Jesus, it is to feed the poor,
Yeah,
Feed our sheep.
feed our sheep.
yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. And do we know that?
Well,
I don't know.
said, you're always gonna have the poor with you, right?
Yeah,
That we could even-
and that was, you know, and that was an indictment on their religion, their political, you know, it was an indictment. Because you're just taking care of people during Passover, because that's when Jesus said that. And that was something they did during Passover, was to feed the poor and the widow and the alien. You know, why the hell aren't you doing it every day? You know, because that's what you're, and why can I say that? Why did Jesus say that? Because he did that. You know, he went to people. He welcomed them as they came, but he also went to them. That's why he was born in a back alley little, well, he was born in Bethlehem, but he grew up in Nazareth. Oh, not to mention that he was a refugee who needed help, you know, and he probably needed help when he came back, you know, to that, you know, that poor community. And, you know, I never liked the phrase that preachers use, you know, Jesus was a poor beggar. I don't get that. I think he was fairly well funded. The Chosen series, I mean, just from my understanding and reading, but the Chosen series has helped, you know, how very influential people have donated, and it is the gospel truth.
Says that he said.
You know, but what he did, he was an itinerant preacher. I mean, he did go everywhere, and that's the point. And what did he do everywhere he went? He fed people, body, mind, and spirit, whatever they needed. Now, did they believe in him? Yeah, yes and no, because they didn't understand him. You know, we want to make you king because you fed 5,000 people. That's what we want. Just feed us. You know. So I mean, the extent of Jesus trying to help the world know about love, and our world doesn't want it. Scott Sanders and I were talking just before service about Roger Goodell. You know who he is?
NFL.
he's an NFL commissioner, makes $64 million a year. Why do people need that much money? I mean, and I'm a big sports fan. We had a great time last night, you know, at the Savannah Bananas. You know, and I'm getting to love that baseball more than other baseball. It's just hard for me to say because I grew up playing sports and loving sports, but it's just, why do they need millions and millions and billions of dollars every year? You know, and I'm sure a lot of good is being done by maybe Roger Goodell. I have no idea, you know, if he tithes, you know, and what could that do to help feed kids or to clothe kids or whatever, you know, to bring a little bit more hope into people's lives. And that's what we're doing here is trying to find out ways, you know, to reach out even more. And we can't just do everything all at once. And I do need a group of people to help us go forward, you know, to things that we talked about last week and things that we'll talk about today. You know, what do we pick and choose to grow into, you know, and the whole part of this, you know, is to grow the church. I mean, if these 150, 60 chairs were filled every Sunday, maybe twice a Sunday, you know, the more people we would have to do more of what needs to be done, you know, in our community.
You can adopt a family if they were.
Yeah, we could get Mandy up here and let her talk, you know, about what she does, you know, as a CASA guru, you know, helping foster kids and so forth. So there's so much, you know, in the Savannah Bananas, that they're founding the guy who founded it, his wife works with foster organization, right?
Foster parents.
And they're foster parents themselves. They just don't talk about it, you know, they do it. You know, and I'm thinking,
Bananas too also raise awareness for foster care.
At the games they.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I
bring
know.
out the foster parents
Yeah,
at the game.
and they bring them out. Yeah, you know, there's such a great need. You know, we just got to figure out how to do that. You know, and for me, it's filling this place up. It really is. You know, and I'm just going to name it and I'm going to claim it. You know, we need people here, you know, so we can do more in here and out there. And that's the purpose of this whole thing, you know, is to grow the church, you know, and to be the church. You know, because I don't know if churches know what they're supposed to be doing. I really don't. Some of them, you know. So anyway, so last week, you know, we talked about, you know, because we were so close with your mom, and what, you know, helping the elderly in assisted living in places. You can't go into memory care because I don't know what we could do there, but, you know, we could take we talked about doing cards, singing for them, playing games, arts and crafts. Talked about Meals on Wheels. You know, the people just want to be visited, you know, especially in those places, because a lot of times the families don't want to be there because they don't want to see their loved one that way, you know. And we've started doing a little bit of work with human trafficking victims and abuse victims, and I'm doing an action team for Kathy this week. And do we need to bring the organization that we're most likely going to partner with to help abuse? Do you want me to schedule a time for them to come here and talk about what their needs? One of their needs is, you know, maybe once a month get 4 or 5 people and just go down and clean their facility, which is really a nice facility, but it could, you know, do some loving care. I had a wonderful meeting with our Middle Tennessee Lutheran pastors and TIRC, TIRRC, Tennessee Immigration Reform and something Coalition, you know, helping the immigrants, you know, in our community. And that's why there's a big problem right down in Napier, in South Nashville, where they rounded up, they had like several hundred traffic stops, you know, and then they took in 100. Yeah, and I know, and I'm not saying we don't have a problem with immigration and bad people here, but it's not a blanket statement that they're all rapists and murderers and killers and it's not. And kids are afraid to go to school, and they may be afraid to go home because their parents might not be there. I mean, there's got to be solutions to that no political party has been, in my mind, has been doing anything for years and years to help with all of the social issues. They talk a good game, they just don't come through, in my humble understanding. You know, and a lot of those victims have kids, and we talked about, you know, taking toys and games and snacks for the kids that they have, and women, most of these are women, and they need feminine care needs. What else? Yeah, expand our own little food closet, because we had someone come in Friday while we were getting ready for the service yesterday, and senior saint stuff, and a guy came in and needed a box of food. So we can have more food here, and we also talked about reaching out to other churches, you know, to partner with them or them with us or us all together, you know, to make a difference. So, and then today, you know, we talked about, you know, well, maybe t-shirts, you know, if nothing else might help the kids, and making a meal, helping teach them how to make a meal, you know, and that's well and good. See, my devil advocate is, you do that, then you have to provide the food every day or every month. And how can we address that? It's great to teach them how to cook, you know, and prepare a meal, but they gotta have the food to do that. So,
Quick question, I'm sorry.
No,
What are we
it's-
doing with the schools and getting them to start getting their action grants?
yeah,
You know, I think if we see that,
yeah.
maybe we can show them how it's done. And then
Well,
we can try
you
to
know,
do it with the people.
with Marquito's leaving. He's going to White's Creek or White's Bridge. He's going to another school, so there'll be a new person there. And we don't know what's going to happen in these schools because they have redrawn the lines, and a lot of the kids that we're helping right now will most likely will not be in these three schools next year. They're going to be closer or in around the Napier community or whatever. So we don't know what it looks like. The girl down here at McGavick Elementary School, she did her action team because I met with them, you know, her and their principal and their vice president, is it vice principal? Assistant principal, whatever, you know, a couple months ago. And then Leslie, I saw her yesterday, before yesterday, whatever, Friday or Thursday, whatever. Did you do your team? Yeah. And I showed it to, you know, that it really worked. So the seed's been planted there, and we just, and Ariel at the high school is excited about it, but now we're at the end of another year and nothing really is going on. But it is something we really, really, really have to do. And what if, instead of providing food to help them, you know, after we teach, if we teach them to cook or whatever, what if we donated $1,000, just throw out a number, $1,000? How many $20 bills is that? 5 times 50? You know,
Which one of them-
what if we helped, you know, 50 families fill out an action team somehow, or through Nicole or someone to help them with that? And then you're talking significant amount of money to go forward. Yeah, and
It's a tough, when we would, you know, our family at Christmas, we would adopt like 10 families in the Napier. Nicole would help us out, and she would tell us what they needed. We'd always provide milk, eggs, butter, you know, things that they don't get in food pantries. Nowadays, which of those families could afford eggs? None of them. They couldn't afford it before. So if you're making, like I would, you know, make these jars where they could make cookies for Christmas,
Mhm.
you have to provide, you need eggs. I mean, what can you make for breakfast that doesn't really provide, you know, a good breakfast, except cereal, but you have to have milk in it. You know, I mean, I remember I worked with the schizophrenic community years ago, and I remember one of my gentlemen coming in and telling me, he goes, he lived with it was like almost like a foster care for elderly or people who had schizophrenia. And he said that that person gave him cereal with orange juice or water, and he said, that's not right, is it? And I said, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But we have to make sure we're checking on these people so that they know that they need to provide them milk. You know, if you're gonna get paid from the county or whatever, like these, you know, we're hoping that these kids in these foster care are being loved and cared for properly by their,
Right.
you know, families. But, you know, but that's, they just didn't have the money for that, and they certainly in this environment don't have the money, you know, so it's hard,
Yeah,
it's hard,
it is hard.
you know,
It's
and
hard.
it's just,
We can't give them chickens,
no.
we can't give them cows, you know,
Well,
so.
you know, that, actually, when I get in touch with Nicole, that's something with the Hive we wanna talk about. They have a church there's a pastor there, why can't they have chickens? You know, so why can't we I'm gonna see what, maybe some of these dairy farms, you know, can offer them milk at some point. I mean, this is something that, you know, I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
you know, talking with them about it, but again, I need more help and more people to help me.
Well, and that's the whole point. We need more people.
We
We need more people. We need more people. Even if we had a lot of money, which we got some money. You know, we're not hurting financially right now. You know, but even if we had a lot of money, we still need people.
We still need people.
You know, because you know, money doesn't cure everything. You know, it's helping people know what we're doing, why we are doing it. You know, like following what God wants us to do. You know, and we need people to get involved, to understand it, to know that message, and then get involved. You know, to live that message.
I think in some ways we have to think not, you know, we need bodies, but we need people who share the passion of our
Absolutely.
vision. You know,
Right.
how do we say, join us in accomplishing something? You know, we use a lot of the overused marketing term, you know, like partnering with, but
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
say, if you want to
Yeah.
achieve a goal, get more people involved in your vision. So we have to really kind of work on that, because there's a lot of people out there that will never come to this church. But like we've said, there are other churches.
Yeah.
Most of us may not know how to reach out to those churches to say, can we involve you in our vision? You know, I think we've got wonderful ideas, but I don't know that we know how to
And
take those first steps to implement some
We
of
need a
it.
roadmap of some
We do,
sort.
we do. Because we can't do everything. I think the cool thing about this church, and one of the things that really attracted us so, was you have a vision that everybody can see and knows that this church wants to be people. And, you know, we're not spread thin trying to do 99 different things. You know, instead of giving $1 to 99 organizations, we wanna give that $100. And we wanna give 100% of our effort to feeding people. Because we feel that that's what God has called this group of people in this time to do. How do we get that vision? Because I think no one wants a child. That's just not
Yeah.
anything that a human does.
Yeah.
And in last week's service, one of the things that just, you know, you get one of those little, it hits you and right between the eyes, and it says, you know, and he dwelt among us. You don't dwell with somebody and not take care of them.
Right.
You don't dwell with them and not feed them. And I don't think we talk about ourselves as dwelling with our neighbors anymore. You know, we sit behind our doors and maybe not even know the people across the street's name.
Yeah.
So it's easy just to ignore them. And so much of what we do when we're feeding these kids, we don't know their names. We don't know their individual stories. And so we've got kind of a curtain between us. And while Jesus tore that curtain down between us and God, we've put curtains up between us and our
Oh,
neighbors.
sure.
And those kids don't wanna come and parade in front of us and tell their stories.
Right.
no, we
So
have
we
to
have to
meet them
just-
where they're at.
yes. And we have to just take that step of faith and say, come work with us, you know? Maybe we say, we're gonna feed 5,000 people this year. Maybe we're only gonna feed 500. But I think if we tell people these are our goals,
Mhm.
join us in our dreams, that could do something. But again,
Maybe
how do we get to them?
Maybe pastor needs to do, get the news involved again, bring up, action teams or whatever, or say we are looking for whatever word you wanna say, partners or others who have our vision. We are trying to feed, again, we're not getting political, but when they take, food and programs away from children, that's the time where we need to step up. And we learned this when we had our tornado. We fed more people than we ever did when we did not have a building, because we knew we needed to step up and help people who still needed us. And I just, it's important to remember that and to make sure that we, that we are that we are the church. And maybe you do need to do, I don't know, it's crazy.
But what about
Well, Liz-
partnering with, like MTSU and TSU have a dairy. It's in Murfreesboro, but the TSU students go there, and I know they've donated milk before.
I wonder,
We reached out
Who
to
is that?
MTSU and TSU. I
What
mean,
does that stand
I
for?
always buy my chocolate.
Middle Tennessee State University,
Okay.
Tennessee State University.
Oh, okay.
I mean, anybody can walk in and buy milk at
Okay,
MTSU.
see, we didn't know that, right?
Did not know
It's
that.
the creamery, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody,
This is stuff.
Do they have shelf-stable milk to
No,
give up?
no, it's
That's
fresh, it's
critical
coming
to
from
some
the
of this.
dairy, but if they're going in. But a lot of these people that are living in these situations don't have a kitchen to cook in.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I volunteer at Greenhouse in Murfreesboro and teach crock pot cooking because they can have a crock pot. Now, it's a nonprofit, but, usually classes are pretty packed because they come, we look at what they get in their food box and create recipes for the crock pot based on what they're gonna get in a food box. Sometimes they get frozen meat, but canned things, I've been doing this since I retired. So they look
You
at their.
retired?
No. That's a figment of my imagination. But if they come to 10 classes, they get a free crock pot. So, and the ones I've been picking are the ones that actually have the timers on them, so that it goes off, it doesn't just go warm. It actually cooks for so many hours, turns off, and then if the kids come home and mom's not gonna be home for another 3 hours, they can eat.
Great.
And coming up, I'll get to you, Liz, I haven't forgotten. Coming up Thanksgiving, what are one of the biggest doorbuster sales at Thanksgiving? Crock pots.
Really?
Yeah, they usually have like $10 or
Yeah,
whatever.
but they're not the nice.
They're not so much. Anyway, but,
It's only 20.
but yeah,
We got a deal, because we bought so many,
yeah.
they gave us a deal on them, so.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things, we can look.
Sure, there's a lot of people we can learn from too. To get their ideas and,
Right.
go down and talk to the folks at MTSU and say, hey, show us what you're doing. And then maybe we can grab some things from there.
Well, I wonder how many families are in the Napier community that have a garden.
Right.
Do you know?
That's another.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Maybe, like reaching out with other, churches to create a community garden.
Well, there is one supposedly here in Donaldson that we were thinking about getting involved with. I don't know where we are with that. In Spiritus, y'all know who Inspiritus is? It used to be Tennessee, Lutheran Services, Tennessee Lutheran Services of Georgia combined several years ago. And we had a big groundbreaking over on what was formerly St. Paul's Lutheran Church, where we went, and nobody here probably, well, you did, to feed women, on the Fifth Sunday breakfast, are building a 5-6 story building that's affordable living. Because, they're kind of like, here's North Nashville, Cheatham Place right across the street is kind of like Napier. And a block the other way is like $1 million condos. And Spiritus has been building community gardens in places throughout Middle Tennessee for a long time. What if we help people build a garden? I don't know if it's too late in the season. I mean, it's beginning, but that's something that a garden, part of me love to have that whole field over there, filled with tomatoes and vegetables and stuff, but I don't know how that could ever happen without major money. Quit looking at your watch. We're here till 11:15. Oh, it needs to go walk. Oh yeah, you got to get your steps in. Yeah. What else? I mean, the point is, how do we focus ourselves, to come up with, share, I think we have a good passion. How can we help share that passion, that vision, and the first thing that's coming to my mind is like sermon series.
The only way you get people to get involved is to invite them.
Right.
And inviting is a critical step, and once people are invited, if they're gonna participate in something like this, you have to have ways for them to participate.
Right.
If they come and there's nothing for them to do,
Right.
they go away.
Yeah, you have to start the dialogue, and I think partnering with others is, because I think we all have a common goal, but it's not, we're not doing it the same, but the more we can do together,
Yeah.
we can impact more.
Can we reach out to partner with other churches if we don't have a clear vision on how we're going to get our people?
And understanding their vision too.
Yeah.
How can we combine our visions together?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure every church has their own vision, just like we have
Sure.
our ways, but how can we, marry that together?
Yeah. Because, numbers are, whether it's here or numbers with all the churches in the community coming together on on a vision to, if it is to just feed kids or feed people, we can do so much more together than we can do individually.
Is there a Nashville Council of Churches? Or something, the equivalent?
Well,
Yes,
we used to have ministerial associations like in Donaldson, and we really haven't done that for years.
How many other Lutheran churches are there in the area?
Not many,
Yeah.
not many at all. Then you gotta define Lutheran. You got Missouri Synod, which is one 8 miles that way and 5 miles that way. I bet they wanna feed kids too. Our theologies are not the same. A lot of Lutheran churches are not all means all.
But we don't have to.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we don't have to focus on our differences.
We don't focus on the differences, we focus on what we can do together, to, if it is feed kids. And how can we do that together? So, we need to, we need to, see what churches want to do and try to build up a new association, and have a clear focus on food. 'Cause I think that is one of the main opportunities to help is food insecurity. So,
We had in Florida, and I'm sorry I keep bringing that up, but that's
yeah,
my
yeah,
experience, right?
yeah,
We had the, I don't know if he was the bishop of Haiti come and talk to us.
mhm,
And he says, thank you, church, for supporting us, but quit telling us what we need, ask us instead.
right.
And I think that that's one of the things we also need to be, is that we can come up with a lot of ideas. The garden made me think, I'm not a gardener and I never will be. And if I live in an apartment building and I work 3 jobs, I'm not gonna start
Not very
gardening.
excited, yeah.
So how can I help you?
Yeah.
Having that dialogue with the people who need something. And you know, a lot of them are gonna say money, and we're gonna say, well, you know, throwing money at the problem isn't gonna solve it. But that's their problem.
But that's their
right now.
problem right now. And we are, as far as the food items for Singing for Their Supper, we did ask specifically,
exactly.
you know, what do you need? Not what we think you need, what do you need the most?
And it wouldn't necessarily be the things that I buy for my family.
Right, right.
But a lot of, oh yeah. A lot of times it's because these people have grown up food insecure, so they don't know anything but
Well, that's-
microwave and instant. They
Right.
don't
Dollar
know
can really
how to
go a lot
fix,
farther
they don't know how to,
Get Whole Foods and know how to make them.
well, they don't know how to economically prepare meals because they've been food insecure all their
Right.
life.
Right.
Ramen noodles and all of that stuff.
In Murfreesboro, Greenhouse Ministry.
You know, when, at our church in New York, on Long Island, we would take the kids to the food pantry as a tour and show them and explain what it was. I remember the woman had said that, you know, one of her guys who would come regularly would ask if there were sardines. So I always would make sure I donated sardines, because I like sardines, you know, but they never get sardines. They get the same old spaghetti and sauce and peanut butter. How about jelly? And like they never asked us for jelly. How about putting bread? They don't, you know, it's like, you know, what do they really want? But like we say, we asked, you know, Marquito or with the schools, this is what we need, tuna, we need this and this, but did you ask the people what they really want? 'Cause maybe
Well,
somebody
I'm just gonna
does.
go, I hate it, on the assumption that our partners told us that they
Yeah.
got with what their kids, you know, and I gotta trust that they doing what they know.
Because they're probably having the same thing, cereal for breakfast, peanut butter and jelly, you know, and hopefully tuna helper or whatever, and then we donate the meat. It's, like you said, they're not used to having regular, real meals. And when we went to Nicole that time where she said they needed bug spray, and we all donated bug spray for us, right? But she was like, no, they needed bug spray for their apartments.
Oh,
And we were like, oh, okay, because we didn't think of that, right?
right,
Most of us don't have bugs, right? Like that, roaches that we have to deal with on a regular basis, and we didn't think that. We thought bug spray, for being
Yeah.
outside and for the ticks
Right.
or whatever. And so we had that, and she's like, no, they needed bug spray, you know? And so, again, some interpretations of, you know, what exactly is it? We don't just write bug spray, we need to know what kind of bug spray, or, you know, things
Right,
like
right.
that. So,
it's just getting to know them and to know their
Relationships
needs.
with
And
people.
relationships, I mean, it's what life and faith is all about, is relationships. You know, and you gotta ask the questions, and then you gotta unpack the answers. You know, what does bug spray mean? Yeah.
and I'm just gonna talk about the immigrants for a minute, because we have that, you know, my grandson is an asylee, and, waiting for a green card. That isn't gonna happen in the next couple of years, I can tell you that, but, our programs for, you know, legal immigrants here have been cut, teaching them English, giving them, you know, supplies, and now they're trying to pass a bill to not teach children who are refugees.
Well, it got killed,
Okay, good.
but it will come back next session. It definitely will come back next session. I know that for a fact.
My daughter has a student.
Did y'all know I got kicked out of the meeting down there?
No.
It is in a nice way.
They
Yeah,
should get
because
arrested.
I know. Yeah, and we were expecting it, because we went as they were talking about, you know, this bill that they're going to, and, you know, kick kids out if they're not documented, you know. And I didn't know I was gonna be one of the leaders when I got there, but I was. And Pastor Matt Steinauer, another ELCA Lutheran pastor, when they got to the point where, before they were about to vote, after they've had all the input, you know, we just walked up to the front and knelt down and started, "Our Father who art in heaven," you know, and kept, and, you know, I thought by the time I got halfway through, they'd be picking us up, but they let us go for a long time. And then the troopers came and said, "Okay, guys, yeah, y'all gotta go." And they just moved us outside, and it was, we made our point. You know, it did pass that meeting, but only by one vote, but when it got to the next meeting, it did not pass, but they were afraid of some technicality, so they didn't push it. So make no mistake, it will come up again, you know, next year, next session. You know, but we gotta stand up for what we believe, and it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. But you know, when the police officer, when the state police came up, you know, they go, thank you for what you did." And then some of the legislators that are on the left side thanked us for, and it wasn't just us too. I mean, there was a room like right there filled with people with the same, you know, feelings and the same ideas, you know, and you've gotta yeah.
And like Cindy said, I mean, like when you look at, like my daughter has you know, does preschool, she has a little boy there, and please, I can't pronounce the country, the EZU, whatever, and he comes and he can't speak English, but she says over, because he's 3 years old, they absorb everything, and she says over the last couple of weeks, he has just been learning, you know, so much, and so happy that he understands, and you look at this little 3-year-old and think, oh my gosh, how could you not help him, how could you not feed him, how could you not, you know, love him.
You know, one of my favorite episodes in the Chosen series, I think it's first season for sure. It may have been the second or third. It's one about Jesus is just out camping,
Yeah.
because he hasn't formed his posse yet. You know, and this little girl sees him, and then she brings her little friend. Just a really poignant picture of how Jesus accepted the kids, you know, met them where they were, and their, you know, how their attitudes of not, you know, being scared or whatever, and calling this one kid brave, whatever. I mean, and then he said, yeah, can we keep coming? Something like that. And he said, yeah, but I got other kids to teach too. You know, and we have other kids to teach. You know, we need to teach us. I don't know if everybody knows, you know, I really believe that many Christians don't know Jesus and what he stood for and what he did. You know, or we wouldn't have all the issues that we continue to talk about and do our, as many people say, do our Band-Aids. You know, because that's all we're doing. That is really all we are doing, is providing Band-Aids. And absolutely, people need to have Band-Aids. But it'd be great if we could teach them to cook. It'd be great to get 10 churches within a mile of this church all together, you know, to raise whatever, to help whatever and whoever, whatever their needs are, that we have to find out what their needs are, specifically. I mean, that's what Jesus did. That's what God has always done. But I really don't think people know that. Is that, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's not in the daily mindset.
It really isn't. It really isn't. And that's why I get so bent out of shape with Roger Goodell making $65 million a year, you know, in sports and entertainment. I mean, and what kind of life? I mean, Jennifer Aniston had, you know, someone break into her house last week, right? Did y'all hear about that? Yeah, they tried to drive it through the gate or whatever. And what kind of life do celebrities have? Can they go to Aldi? Can they go to Kroger? Can they just go out and, be regular people, or they have to always be looking over their shoulder and have all their security people? What kind of life is that? And how much more money do you need?
I think it's important though to celebrate those people that do give out of their abundance.
Absolutely.
We talked about sports people. I know that in the Tampa Bay area, especially when Tony Dungy was coach of the Bucks, but even after that, the people that are involved with that organization do incredible stuff all over Tampa Bay. I had the opportunity to be in a program that was sponsored by the Gates Foundation out in Washington.
Right, right.
And the idea that, he gave, it started out with 90% of his wealth, is it? To
Yeah.
solve extremely difficult issues. This one was how do you create safe toilet systems for poor countries in a sustainable way. Incredibly difficult challenge. And now he's giving another 9% off, so he's going to be left with a measly $1 billion. But
Poor guy.
the same thing.
But yeah.
Warren Buffett also has given 90% of his money to the Gates Foundation, or that's where it will go,
Yeah.
because he believes in that. He says his children can get along on a few $100 million.
Yeah. If Natalie were here, she would tell you that I think it's Taylor Lewan and Roman Yossi, a Titans guy and a Predator guy, and there might be others. They donate a lot of money, funds, whatever, for her Home Street Home Ministries that she's involved with. So there is a lot of good people are doing with their money, and there's nothing wrong with having $65 million a year. It's what you do to get it, and what you do once you have it. I think Mandy could live pretty well on $5 million if we had 60 million and gave it all away. You wouldn't mind that, would you? No.
Well, that leads to a great idea is, we were talking earlier how some of these things we're gonna need a lot of money. And I think right now is a crucial time to bring all different churches together.
Yeah.
They're working together, and maybe then we figure out what we need and our expense, but then we could reach out to the Titans, reach out to the Predators, reach out to musicians and see if they want to help.
Yeah, I'd love to have Dolly Parton show up, for our singing for their supper. Well, I kept threatening to send her a text or Facebook, whatever, but didn't. But
Never know.
you just never know. And one thing we did found out during this short process of putting together that wonderful event, and it was really good. It could have been a lot better if we'd have had more time. We'll have more time. But if we're going to get Kroger, or Publix, maybe not, I don't know about Aldi, or Flora was working with GFS and another consolidated food place. They need to have information, at least, I think it's like 8 weeks ahead of time. So, and then what we will do, we're gonna get, once we find out how many kids, or a close number, how many kids we actually feed, we can go to those organizations. At least, we're trying to have all this done by the end of June, have the numbers and all that. Okay, GFS and Consolidated Foods, Kroger, this is what we did, and we were able to feed 1,500 kids. Be specific about what we did, who we did, and how much. Not how many food items, but how many kids, were fed. And then we didn't get any TV publicity, which I thought we might through WKRM, because they did a lot of stuff with us during the tornado and stuff. But if I go to them again a couple months ahead of time instead of maybe a month ahead of time, here's what we did last time, here are the numbers, we're gonna do it again. And as you do that, maybe a sports person, or maybe a singer person, or what, you just don't know. But you don't know if the mayor's going to come to a Christmas Eve service if he doesn't get an invitation. Thank you very much, Harold. And someone else sent him one last year. This Harold was the year before, and the mayor came, and he came this past Christmas, and we're pretty good. We're not like this. But I did spend some time when we had the groundbreaking at Inspiritus for that facility, and and we had a little conversation. You know, so he knows me. He knows who we are. He was here when we had our grand reopening. He knows us, but we need to go the extra step. You know, here's our focus, here's our vision, and here's what we have done, and here's where we want to go to be more concrete, you know, so to speak. You know, and then as we grow this, then it's easier to call Donaldson, the Donaldson Fellowship, or, you know, the Episcopal Church or the Methodist Church, you know, and try and get people.
Or synagogues.
Hmm?
Or synagogues.
Or, and synagogues, you know, and mosques,
Yeah,
you know, absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely. You know, so it's a big vision. You know,
There are a lot of things that we talked about that we want to do. My suggestion might be, let's pick, just to start with, 5 of the things that we think we can do.
right,
And then we all agree on it, and when we ask for a volunteer, who's gonna lead this one? I'll lead
Right.
this one, you lead this one. To make an action plan. To
Right.
say, this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna contact these people, we're gonna get a hold of Thrivent, we're gonna do all these things. And then if we know what we wanna do, if we have a roadmap or an action plan, then I think we have a much better chance of
Right.
getting things improved or
Right.
implemented, than if we just say, well, yeah, it'd be a nice thing to do, somebody wanna do it, and nobody raises their hand, and it goes away into the sunset.
you know, and again, going back to the feeding the kids for that songwriter night, we ended up with a lot of volunteers. If you were here, you saw all the Thrivent T-shirt people helping out. But all those volunteers kind of like showed up at the last minute. We had a hard time because we probably didn't have enough time ahead of time or exactly what we needed to do. You know, it worked out, but this next time, like I said, we're gonna be ready by July 1st. Here's what we're gonna do, and here's what we specific needs, you know, to get people involved. You know, and then, yeah, go from there. But, yeah, you gotta have a plan. You gotta have a plan. And for this one, we need to know exactly as much as we can what we did before, you know, and where we wanna go to make it better. And it's all about planning, you know, and at least 2 or 3 months ahead of time.
Lessons learned, what did we learn?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we raised close to $3,000 or maybe over $3,000. It was like close to $2,000 as of last week. And 1,100 of that came through our QR code that we did, which was pretty amazing. You know, and when I took the flyer to our bank, the church banks with Pinnacle Bank, I said, can we put this flyer poster up, you know, for your, oh yeah, we'll give you some money for that. We'll probably get $1,000. Well, I got a call Friday afternoon from one of the people at Pinnacle. Can you come by today? I said, well, I'm kind of busy. We're getting ready for the service and stuff. And, well, come by on Monday. We have something for you. So I'm thinking I'm going to go by on Monday and pick up a check for $1,000, which will put us over $3,000. We've already got maybe 1,000 food items. I mean, there's going to be a lot of food that we're going to be able, you know, to donate, and we're getting with the schools to help us with that, but we might need some of y'all to help load up cars and so forth also. And we won't know that until we get closer to June, because we got $3,000 that we need to buy, and we might need people to help go buy them, so somebody doesn't do it all.
But you might be able to do,
Because someone will do it all, because that's what I love to do, and I gotta quit that, I know that.
but you might be able to do June 1st and July 1st.
Absolutely,
Right.
spread it out, because we don't wanna take everything all at one time. But yeah, to spread it out a little bit, to kind of, you know, because they'll be out all of June and all of July, maybe the last day of July. I don't know when they go back to school. It'll be either the last week of July or the 1st of August. You know, so we should and we will do half now and half.
When and how is the meeting with the schools going to take place to understand how to get the food to the right place at the right time?
Well, a lot of it, we're gonna meet with them, we have met with them. And, through the elementary school, there's a lot of their hero students live in the extended living motels on Elm Hill, and then there's a big apartment complex on Elm Hill Drive on the other side of, Briley Parkway, is where we're gonna go with them, you know, to help distribute the food, and a lot will go to the Napier community. They have a library that has a room about maybe half this size, I can't remember, I've been in there before, where they can set tables out around, you know, we can put, you know, the meats here, the cereals here, whatever, blah, 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 and they can coordinate it and, you know, help the families go through and not just take everything.
yeah.
Yeah, they can let them shop, but have some there, you know, to make sure, you know, I don't know how it's gonna work out, who gets what or how much, you know, but, so we are meeting with them on how to get that done.
And getting people to, allowing people to, the privilege of going and setting things up and helping with that is gonna be really important, because that experience on the giver side,
Right,
is what's going to create a desire to do more.
that's right, and we will take pictures, videos,
But
You
we
know,
gotta
of-
ask people to have things for people to do, many people. to
right,
do.
right, so,
Can I ask you what, so when you asked Thrivent for money for the food for this
Mhm.
past event, how willing were they I mean,
what you need?
okay, so.
I said 300, we want 300 hamburgers, we want to have buns to go with that, chips, and a cookie and drinks. And they said, okay.
So would they, I'm curious to know, would they just donate to this program again, you know, just
They
for
might.
children without us all having to do, action teams or waiting?
No,
for-
yeah,
I
'cause
have
I
to
don't,
do
you know,
X one,
this-
you know.
I'm hoping, you know, that event and the events going forward are not action team
Right,
driven.
but no, I'm just saying, could they, you know, say, you know, that was for an event, would they donate for, because they're knowing also what is going on with children,
So the thing-
funds of food being, you know, would they just donate money to us to provide for the
No.
children?
The thing to remember with Thrivent is they have
Bless you.
a problem and an objective. The problem is that they can't give away all the money that they have to give away. But the second is they want to get people involved in things. And so they don't like to give money just for money's sake, but they want to give where people are getting involved in doing good things. And so it has to be, that's why action teams.
I see.
That's why those are so important.
And we'll do the same thing with media and grocery stores for the next one. We will send something to Thrivent, you know, thanking them again, which I already have. Here's the number of kids that we fed, you know, and where they were, you know, and I'll be very surprised if they won't help us again.
Right.
But you just never know. But if we just say, wait 3 months and go, hey, can y'all, you know, buy 300 hot dogs and brats, you know, for our, and not let them know what we did with the, you know, yeah. So we're gonna let them know, let them see what we did, which they were here, some of them were here.
And they like pictures too.
And
they've
pictures.
got like websites for you, for your action team to go tell your
Yeah.
story, show the pictures. And that's the way we can get
Yeah.
them even more.
So that's what we will do to help them want to be involved again. Because every dollar, penny that we don't spend, people hopefully will donate, you know, for the food that we're getting for kids.
What about Catholic Charities?
Hey, I like the new Pope.
Yeah.
I like the old Pope.
You mean,
Right.
Hope
Across
so.
the street.
Yeah.
The Holy Rosary's just right here.
How, you know, yeah. I
That's-
mean, there's so much we can do, but we have to get focused ourselves first. And
Yeah.
a big part of that is not to get 50 people involved, but maybe it would be a good idea. But I want to get some people that are committed to this, that we meet once a month or whatever, and to really define who we are and what we want to do. And I don't know if we can do that every Sunday here during this class time.
Yeah.
It just can't happen, you know, but if you're interested, please let me know, and I'll let everybody else know. Because the more people involved, it could be messy getting it organized, you know, but I'd say the key people. You know, just so we get a clear focus and passion and vision, you know, and then have 6 or 8 people to help spread that vision among the rest of the congregation and through me, because I'm like the spokesperson.
You
You know,
want vision casters.
vision casters, I like that. You know, because that's what Jesus did with his disciples. And then, you know, he cast it out to them, and then he called them to go out and vision casters and to do, you know, to get more people involved, like Lydia, you know, some woman, you know, Dorcas. You know, Dorcas is in, Dorcas was Catwoman. If you remember the movie, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers,
That's great.
the woman that played one of the Catwomen in the,
Julie Newmar.
Julie Newmar, she was Dorcas,
That's right.
you know, in that movie. Well, all the boys' names were, I don't know if they were all Old Testament, but they are all biblical names. I don't know if all the,
But they went alphabetically.
and they went alphabetically. Yeah, wow, very good, you know that one.
My sons danced in one
Ah,
of the famous dance on the,
when they're building the barn?
yeah.
Yeah, and then they got in a big fight. Yeah, it's kind of like churches. Whenever 2 or more gather together, there's an argument. No,
For God so loved the world, he didn't call a committee.
he didn't call a committee. Okay. So, oh gosh, we're done. Maybe I was going to bring up something. We could bring a representative from the women's shelter to come do a presentation. I can get with, you know, the Tennessee Immigration Reform, Refugee Reform Coalition, that's the name. I could have them come and talk to us. Is that something that we want, or is that just getting more and more things and not focusing on one?
I think
Will
it's
we get any
important.
specific action as a result of that?
Yeah.
Well, because I can have them here, not next week. And is the summer a good time to do that? Probably not. People are going to be gone a lot, so.
And it would give us time
And
to
that's what
develop those goals and
Right.
what do we want to accomplish when they're
Right.
here and after they're gone.
And then focus on what we want to do immediately. And, you know, and then when we kick off the fall, we can start inviting other organizations in. And, you know, I want to bring a mosque person. What's
And a mom.
Iman, yeah. You know, and do more of that and get with the Jewish brothers and sisters and the Catholic people. And
You know, we found, when we had invited other religions that people weren't familiar with,
Yeah.
like, you know, from Islam
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Jewish, those were some of the most attended things. And if we can use that as a springboard to work together,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be something?
But is that a fall thing again? Is there something we could try in the summer?
Why couldn't we, you know,
It-
You
a
do it
bigger
one-on-one.
table,
That's true.
the book, right?
Yeah,
He has a table and he fed, and other religions came here. And again, that was something we did at our old church. We used to visit, we had the children, as part of their confirmation, had to visit and learn about other religions. And it just for, again, acceptance and inclusion of other people, you know, other religions. Like, you know, I didn't want my kids going to a Catholic school because I wanted them to grow up with Jewish people and Islam people and Hindu people. I didn't, you know, I just didn't want that. And so, you know, I think it's important that we include those people. And
Sure,
that-
absolutely.
Why couldn't we do it over the summer? And one of the things that unfortunately here was the bad weather, because we would have had it outside and people passing by, you know, would have said, hey, what's going on there today?
yeah.
You know, if we had that bigger table and had a big barbecue and invited other people of different religions and and LGBTQ people. I mean, it's important for
Yeah.
us to understand and for us, you know, again, I'm gonna reference, you know, Nicole, it's like, she tells me, you know, tells us all the time, like, you know, Marianne, it's not like our women do not know how to cook, but, you know, why don't we cook together our culture and you hear our stories, you know, we should be at a time of what's going on in that community, be the white, help the white presence, be a white presence for them to show solidarity, you know, just show up and show that we care what's happening in their community. And, you know, it's just to hear and understand other cultures and to show like all means all, but look at us. Do you see any, hardly any black people, do you see
Yeah, we have
any
one.
other LGBTQ people here?
Yeah.
You know, it's, I think,
We do,
You
but
know.
you might not know that.
right, maybe. Yeah,
I
I
know we
mean,
do.
right, like when my daughter and her partner come, you know, but not on a regular basis, we don't see that. Or somebody who,
Yeah, we do, I do,
you do,
I do.
but anybody from the outside, do they see, hey, you know, is somebody like me? You know, is there somebody like me there? You wanna feel welcomed, is there a homeless person coming in? Is there, you know, during that, that event, I did see somebody who was, mentally disabled come in and, came over and said hello to me and walked around. And that was very nice. So somebody who was a caregiver or somebody of that, you know, they.
And we're running out of time,
Yeah.
and I know y'all got a long drive to get back home. But if anybody's interested, and I will invite everybody else that wants to get together at some time to start, you know, working on a clear vision and focus what we're talking about, you know, to help us move forward. Just let me know, and we'll work out the details as we go. And I got a text from George. He's doing much better.
Yeah, what?
I have no idea. He just, yeah, so I'm not gonna tell you what I know because I don't know what I know. I mean, I know a little bit, but he said he's fine and feeling much better, and hopefully he is going, I'll go by and see him later on this afternoon, but we're gonna go out and celebrate Mother's Day. Yes, I hope y'all have wonderful Mother's Day. Thank you for your extended time. Oh my gosh. I gotta stop the recording and stop this.